For centuries, the story of giants has captured human imagination, and none is as legendary as Goliath, the Philistine champion. According to 1 Samuel 17:4, Goliath stood 6 cubits and a span tall, ancient terms that translate to an astonishing 9 feet 9 inches today. Imagine a man whose head would brush the rim of a modern basketball hoop, standing like a living monument of fear and power. With a stature that could eclipse even the bravest warriors, Goliath wasn't just a man. He was a walking reminder of the Philistines' dominance in those days. Yet it wasn't just his height that made him formidable. Goliath was a walking fortress. He wore a bronze helmet that gleamed under the sun and a coat of scale armor crafted from overlapping metal plates, weighing an incredible 125 pounds. His legs were protected by bronze greaves, and a massive bronze javelin was slung across his shoulders. The shaft of his spear was as thick as a weaver's beam, and its iron head alone weighed 15 pounds. His chainmail, layered with bronze rings from shoulders to knees, was more than protection. It was a statement of power. To add to his imposing presence, a shield-bearer ran ahead of him, carrying an enormous shield as tall as a man, reinforcing his already formidable defences. Imagine the dread that would seize anyone forced to face such a towering figure, armoured from head to toe. Who could possibly stand a chance? Goliath knew the fear he inspired, and he revelled in it. With unwavering confidence, he addressed the ranks of Israel. "Why have you come out to line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine, and you servants of Saul? Choose a man for yourselves and let him come down to me. If he is able to fight with me and kill me, then we will become your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then you shall become our servants and serve us." 1 Samuel 17:8-9. But Goliath didn't issue his challenge once and then vanish. No, for 40 long days, he marched out every morning and evening, flaunting his size and power, taunting the Israelites and daring anyone to step forward. 40 days of intimidation, 40 days of defiance. The Philistine giant stood as a symbol of despair for Israel, a constant reminder of their apparent helplessness. 1 Samuel 17:16. Meanwhile, far from the battlefield, in the hills of Judah near Bethlehem, a young shepherd named David was busy with far less dramatic duties. Too young to join the army, David spent his days tending his father's sheep, unaware of the brewing conflict between Israel and the Philistines, or of Goliath's unrelenting challenges. His concerns were simpler, though no less heartfelt. 3 of his older brothers were serving in Saul's army, and his father, Jesse, grew increasingly anxious about their well-being. Jesse, an aging man no longer able to travel easily, summoned David for an important task. "David," Jesse said, "take this roasted grain and these 10 loaves of bread to your brothers in their camp. Also bring these 10 cuts of cheese to their commander. See how your brothers are doing, and bring back news of them." 1 Samuel 17:17-18. It was an errand of care, a seemingly mundane task. Yet little did David know that this humble mission would set him on a path to destiny, thrusting him into the heart of one of the most dramatic confrontations in Israel's history. So David awoke early in the morning, leaving the flock in the care of a keeper, as his father Jesse had instructed. With supplies in hand, he journeyed to the Israelite camp. As he approached, he saw the army forming ranks and heard their battle cry echoing through the valley. The scene buzzed with tension and anticipation as soldiers braced for another confrontation with the enemy. 1 Samuel 17:20. As David arrived at the edge of the camp, he quickly noticed the chaos and urgency in the air. The soldiers were gearing up for the fight, and their cries of determination filled the morning sky. Eager to understand what was happening, David entrusted his baggage to the keeper and ran to the front lines to find his brothers. While speaking with them, a sudden shift in the atmosphere silenced the camp. Emerging from the Philistine ranks came their champion, Goliath of Gath. Towering above the battlefield, his booming voice carried the same taunting threats he had hurled for over a month. This time David heard him. The sheer audacity of the giant's words sent the soldiers of Israel retreating into their tents, trembling with fear. 1 Samuel 17:22-24. David stood his ground, his eyes fixed on the towering warrior. Though unfamiliar with Goliath's challenge, David could feel anger rising within him. How could this man dare to defy the armies of the living God? He turned to the soldiers around him, asking, "What will be done for the man who defeats this Philistine and wipes away this disgrace from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine to defy the armies of the living God?" The men explained the rewards promised to the one who could slay Goliath: riches, the king's favor, and even his daughter in marriage. 1 Samuel 17:26-27. David's words soon reached King Saul, who summoned him. Standing before the king, David said confidently, "Let no one lose heart because of this Philistine. I, your servant, will go and fight him." Saul, startled by David's boldness, protested, "You cannot fight him. You are only a boy, and he has been a warrior since his youth." But David replied with conviction, "Your servant has tended his father's sheep. Whenever a lion or a bear came and carried off a lamb, I pursued it, struck it down, and rescued the lamb. If it turned on me, I seized it by the mane, struck it, and killed it. I have faced both lion and bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, for he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." Saul, moved by David's faith, said, "Go, and may the Lord be with you." 1 Samuel 17:32-37. Saul then offered David his own armor, a bronze helmet, a coat of mail, and a sword. Clad in the king's gear, David tried to move, but quickly realized he couldn't fight in what he wasn't used to. "I cannot go in these," he said, removing the armor. Instead, David chose his own weapons, his shepherd's staff, his sling, and 5 smooth stones from a nearby stream. Here we see David, the youngest son of Jesse, stepping into the valley of Elah, dressed not as a warrior, but as a simple shepherd. He carried no sword, no spear, no armor, only a staff in one hand, a sling in the other, and a pouch containing 5 smooth stones. Armed with nothing but his unwavering faith and humble tools, David was ready for a battle that would forever be remembered. From the Philistine side, the massive Goliath approached, his armor gleaming in the sunlight, his shield-bearer leading the way. The giant scanned the field, his eyes narrowing as they fell on David. The sight of this ruddy-faced youth brought a sneer to Goliath's lips. He stepped closer, his voice booming, "Am I a dog that thou comest to me with stones?" 1 Samuel 17:43. Goliath's laughter echoed as he cursed David by his gods, then added, "Come to me, and I will give thy flesh unto the fowls of the air, and to the beasts of the field." 1 Samuel 17:44. But David stood firm, his voice calm yet filled with conviction, as he replied, "You have come to me with a sword, and with a spear, and with a shield. But I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. This day will the Lord deliver you into mine hand, and I will smite thee, and take your head from you. And I will give the carcasses of the host of the Philistines this day unto the fowls of the air, and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel." 1 Samuel 17:45-46. The words hung in the air, a declaration of faith so powerful that it seemed to cut through the tension. The Philistine army, watching from the ridge, surely scoffed at David's boldness, while the Israelites waited in tense silence, their hopes pinned on this unlikely champion. Then it began. Goliath took heavy steps forward, his towering frame moving with confidence. Yet David did not wait for him to close the distance. Without hesitation, David ran toward the battle line, reaching into his pouch. His fingers found one of the stones, and he swiftly placed it in his sling. With practiced skill, he let the stone fly. The stone struck its mark with devastating precision, embedding itself in Goliath's forehead. The mighty Philistine stopped abruptly, his expression frozen in shock, before his massive body fell face first to the ground. The valley seemed to hold its breath. David approached the fallen giant, his courage unwavering. Standing over Goliath, he drew the Philistine's own sword from its sheath. With one swift motion, David ended Goliath's life and severed his head. The once boastful champion of the Philistines was now a lifeless figure in the dust. When the Philistines saw their great warrior defeated, they were overcome with fear. They turned and fled, their confidence shattered. Meanwhile, the Israelites, emboldened by David's victory, let out a triumphant cry. They pursued the fleeing Philistines, striking them down along the way to the gates of Ekron and Gath. The Israelite army returned victorious, plundering the abandoned Philistine camp. As for David, he carried Goliath's head as a trophy, a symbol of God's deliverance, and brought it to Jerusalem. His triumph was not merely a personal victory, but a resounding proclamation of God's power and faithfulness to his people. The story of David and Goliath is one of the most iconic tales in the Bible, illustrating the triumph of courage and faith over seemingly insurmountable odds. But who exactly was Goliath? Some scholars suggest he may have been a Nephilim, a member of a mysterious race mentioned in the scriptures. Others argue that Goliath, the towering warrior of Gath, was not Nephilim, but a Rephaim, as the Nephilim were believed to have been wiped out during Noah's flood, leaving only Noah's family to repopulate the earth. The Rephaim are referenced nearly 20 times in the Bible. Deuteronomy 2:1, 20-22, and Joshua 12:4 highlight their connection to the giants of old. One notable figure was Og, the king of Bashan, described as the last remnant of these ancient giants. His iron bedstead measured 9 cubits in length, approximately 12 feet, and 4 cubits in width, about 6 feet, underscoring his immense size and strength. His kingdom, encompassing the fertile lands of Bashan and Argob, was later allotted to the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and half of Manasseh. Interestingly, Gath, Goliath's hometown, was once a significant centre for the Anakim, a race often associated with giants. Goliath was not the only giant of note among the Philistines. He was part of a lineage steeped in mystery, a family of colossal beings known as the Rephaim, who are woven throughout the fabric of the scriptures. The Rephaim, whose name can be translated as mighty men or giants, were formidable beings who lived in Canaan and its surrounding regions. Deuteronomy speaks of them saying, "That also was accounted a land of giants. Giants dwelt therein in old time, and the Ammonites call them Zamzummims, a people great and many, and tall as the Anakims, but the Lord destroyed them before them." Deuteronomy 2:20-21. The first of Goliath's fearsome brothers to be named in Scripture is Lahmi, a towering warrior of the Philistines. His story emerges in 1 Chronicles 20 verse 5, which recounts, "And there was war again with the Philistines, and Elhanan the son of Jair slew Lahmi, the brother of Goliath the Gittite, whose spear staff was like a weaver's beam." Lahmi's presence on the battlefield must have struck fear into the hearts of Israel's warriors. His spear, described as being as thick and heavy as a weaver's beam, was not just a weapon, but a symbol of his immense strength and size. Like his brother Goliath, Lahmi represented the seemingly insurmountable power of the Philistine giants, a power that had long intimidated Israel. But Lahmi's strength would not save him when faced with the courage and faith of Elhanan, one of David's mighty men. Elhanan, a skilled warrior whose name means God is gracious, rose to the challenge in a time of war. While the scripture provides only a brief account of the battle, we can imagine the clash of these two warriors as a moment of great tension. Lahmi, with his colossal stature and deadly spear, would have seemed an unstoppable foe. Yet Elhanan, armed with skill and trust in the God of Israel, triumphed, slaying the giant and securing victory for his people. Elhanan's act of bravery secured his place among the legendary warriors of Israel, the mighty men who stood alongside King David and fought for the nation's survival. His victory over Lahmi was not just a military achievement, it was a spiritual one as well. It served as a reminder to Israel that even the most formidable enemies could be defeated when they stood in the strength of the Lord. Lahmi's fall marked only the beginning of Israel's battles with Goliath's kin, the Philistines had more giants among their ranks, each one a symbol of defiance against God's chosen people. Yet each battle, each victory, reinforced a central truth. No matter the size of the enemy or the odds against them, Israel's God was mightier still. The next giant to rise was Ishbibenob, described in 2 Samuel 21:16. And Ishbibenob, which was of the sons of the giant, the weight of whose spear weighed 300 shekels of brass in weight, he being girded with a new sword, thought to have slain David. A descendant of the legendary giants, Ishbibenob was a warrior of immense strength, armed with a massive spear that few could lift and a newly forged sword sharpened for a single purpose: revenge. Consumed by rage and a thirst for justice over the fall of his kin, he set his sights on none other than King David, the slayer of Goliath and the champion of Israel. The battlefield became a theatre of peril for David, weary from decades of war, from the weight of leadership and the scars of countless battles. The once indomitable warrior found himself faltering. Ishbibenob, towering and relentless, pressed the advantage. With each swing of his deadly sword, it seemed Israel's light might be extinguished forever. But heroes often rise in the darkest hour. Abishai, one of David's most faithful warriors and a fierce fighter in his own right, witnessed the king's peril. Refusing to let the lamp of Israel be snuffed out, Abishai surged forward. With unyielding determination, he confronted the giant, matching Ishbibenob's fury with his own. In a climactic clash, Abishai struck the final blow, bringing the giant down and saving the life of the king. This harrowing encounter shook David's loyal men to the core. Their beloved king, their symbol of God's favour and Israel's hope, had come too close to death. They gathered around him and solemnly declared, "Thou shalt go no more out with us to battle, that thou quench not the light of Israel." 2 Samuel 21:17. It was a turning point in David's life. The warrior king, once invincible on the battlefield, now became a symbol of something greater: Israel's spiritual and political unity. His men, driven by love and loyalty, sought to preserve him, not just for their sake, but for the destiny of the nation. Thus, the tale of Ishbibenob is more than a story of a giant and a king. It is a testament to the bond between a leader and his people, and the divine protection that often manifests through the courage of others. The third giant was known as Saph, a brother of the infamous Goliath, and is one of the lesser-known figures in the lineage of the Philistine giants. His brief mention in 2 Samuel 21:18 reads, "And it came to pass after this, that there was again a battle with the Philistines at Gob. Then Sibbecai the Hushathite slew Saph, which was of the sons of the giant." Though the passage is short, it offers a glimpse into the continuing saga of Israel's struggle against the mighty giants of Philistine lore. Saph, described as a son of the giant, was likely as imposing and formidable as his brothers, embodying the same terrifying reputation that made the Philistines a fearsome adversary. His towering stature and immense strength are left to the imagination, but his very existence suggests that he was a warrior of renown, a shadowy figure whose presence on the battlefield would have struck fear into many. The battle at Gob, where Saph met his end, was a clash of courage and determination. The Philistines, emboldened by their mighty champions, sought to dominate Israel, but they underestimated the resolve of Israel's warriors. Among them was Sibbecai the Hushathite, a man of unyielding faith and bravery. While others might have quailed at the sight of the giant, Sibbecai stood firm, engaging Saph in what must have been a fierce and harrowing combat. Saph's defeat was not merely a physical victory, it was a spiritual and symbolic one. Each giant that fell was a reminder of God's provision and the courage he instilled in his people. Just as David's triumph over Goliath had galvanized Israel years before, Sibbecai's slaying of Saph reinforced the message that even the mightiest adversaries could not stand against those who fought under the banner of the living God. The fourth giant is very interesting since the Bible recounts that it was also called Goliath, referred to as Goliath the Gittite. His story appears in 2 Samuel 21:19, where it says, "And there was again a battle in Gob with the Philistines, where Elhanan the son of Jarioregim, a Bethlehemite, slew the brother of Goliath of Gath, the staff of whose spear was like a weaver's beam." This verse has sparked much discussion among biblical scholars and historians. Was this Goliath truly a second giant? Or could the passage be a scribal echo of the original Goliath of Gath, the fearsome warrior who fell to young David's sling? The phrasing seems to hint at a familial connection, referring to him as the brother of Goliath, leading some to theorize that he was a sibling or even a namesake of the original Philistine champion. If this Goliath was indeed a distinct individual, his legacy was as daunting as that of his famous counterpart. Like the first Goliath, he carried a colossal spear described as being like a weaver's beam, a weapon so immense that it would have required extraordinary strength to wield. This description evokes a sense of awe, painting a vivid picture of the brute strength and sheer size of these ancient warriors. The setting of the story, a battle in Gob, adds another layer of intrigue. The ongoing conflict between the Israelites and the Philistines was rife with such encounters, where mighty champions would emerge from the ranks to face their adversaries. In this particular clash, it was Elhanan, a Bethlehemite, who rose to the challenge and struck down this towering figure, marking another triumph for the people of Israel. The fifth and the most extraordinary of Goliath's brothers is described in 2 Samuel 21:20-21, where it says, "And there was yet a battle in Gath, where was a man of great stature, that had on every hand 6 fingers, and on every foot 6 toes, 24 in number. And he also was born to the giant. And when he defied Israel, Jonathan the son of Shimeah, the brother of David, slew him." This giant towering over the battlefield was a spectacle to behold. His 6-fingered hands and 6-toed feet, an anomaly known as polydactylism, set him apart even among the formidable descendants of the giants. The sheer size of his frame, combined with his unusual features, likely struck fear into the hearts of those who faced him. His presence was a reminder of the ancient Nephilim, a race described in scripture as mighty and awe-inspiring, whose legacy seemed to linger in the bloodlines of the Philistine champions. The giant was no mere curiosity. He was a warrior of great renown. His massive hands gripped weapons of terrifying power, and his steps thundered across the battlefield like the march of an advancing storm. His defiance of Israel was not just an act of arrogance, but a challenge to the God of Israel, a challenge that would seal his fate. Enter Jonathan, the son of Shimeah and nephew of King David. Though not as celebrated as his illustrious uncle, Jonathan carried the same courage and faith that had felled Goliath years before. He faced the monstrous giant, not with fear, but with the conviction that no opponent, no matter how imposing, could stand against the God of Israel. The clash must have been one for the ages. The giant, with his colossal frame and unnatural strength, likely assumed his victory was assured. But like Goliath before him, he underestimated the power of faith and the skill of a warrior fighting for a divine cause. In a moment of courage and divine providence, Jonathan struck down the giant, silencing his taunts and proving once again that the mightiest of men are no match for those who walk with God. This tale reminds us that physical might and outward appearances are fleeting. The unnamed giant, though a marvel of strength and a wonder to behold, fell as quickly as his prideful brothers. What endures is the legacy of faith and courage, a legacy that Jonathan shared with his uncle David, standing as a beacon of hope for all who face insurmountable challenges. The Rephaim and their kind may have been vanquished long ago, but their shadow looms large in the collective imagination of humanity. Their stories refuse to fade, transcending the pages of the Bible to echo through the myths and legends of cultures worldwide. The mighty titans of Greek mythology, towering frost giants of Norse sagas, and the enigmatic giant beings whispered of in Native American traditions all hint at a deeper, shared memory. An era when colossal figures roamed the earth, shaping both the landscape and the narratives of those who came after. These tales, though separated by vast oceans and time, bear striking similarities. They speak of beings both feared and revered, symbols of strength, mystery, and sometimes divine wrath. Were these legends mere flights of imagination, or do they point to a forgotten chapter of human history? Some believe they are echoes of ancient truths, fragmented across cultures like shards of a broken mirror, each reflecting a piece of the same extraordinary past. The deaths of Goliath and his brothers marked the decline of the giants, but their stories live on as a testament to the power of faith and courage. Each victory over these towering foes reaffirmed Israel's belief that their strength came not from physical might, but from their trust in the Lord. As the psalmist writes, "For who is God save the Lord? And who is a rock save our God?" What do you think of these ancient tales? Share your thoughts and let us know if you'd like us to delve deeper into the legends of the Rephaim and other biblical giants. Until next time, let these stories inspire your own battles of faith and perseverance.